All right, everyone. Happy Tuesday. It's 12:02, so I think we'll get started with this webinar session. Welcome to session 2 of our Energize Colorado mental health trainings. My name is Macy Wingerter. I'm the marketing coordinator for Energize Colorado. And I just want to thank you for making time in your day today to join us and for being excited about mental health. I have with me, if you were here for the first session, you know Alex Yannicone. She is the Director of Education and Community Programs at the Johnson Depression Center at CU Anschutz. Alex provides programs and trainings addressing mental health issues across Colorado, and we are talking about mindfulness today. So we're very grateful to have her here, and I'm going to turn it over right away because I know we have lots of important information to cover today. So thank you, Alex, and we'll get started.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for joining today. We are going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour talking about mindfulness. And so with this session, for those of you who maybe have been practicing mindfulness for a long time or have a really good understanding of the basis of it, this may be more of a review. For those of you who this may be kind of new to, hopefully you'll gain a lot of insight and information of how to practice this within your daily lives or in a way that works for you. So that's really our goal, is to learn just kind of a little bit more about what mindfulness is, the benefits of it. And then we're really going to learn how we can practice it. So we're going to do a few exercises to kind of learn what makes the most sense for you and figure out how this can be best fit into your lives, as we all lead very busy lives and have individual needs and differences that need to be paid attention to, especially when we're talking about this subject. So we'll go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. If you have questions about those slides, please ask those in the moment. If you have more general questions, I'm just going to have you wait until the end, just so we can make sure we can get through all the content, and also so I just don't miss anything. And I'll make sure to answer all the questions that come up. So we'll go ahead and get started. If my slides will go, and hopefully you can see my screen. If you can't, please let me know. All right, so I think most of us can agree that throughout our day, we are usually anything but in the moment. A lot of us will return again and again to memories or events or past experiences or potential future scenarios that may happen that may worry us. We also, a lot of times, especially when we're in meetings or in sessions or situations where it's very easy for our minds to wander, we'll think about the past or future to really escape kind of what's going on in the present moment, kind of daydreaming a lot of times. And so what we don't recognize is that so much of our day, we don't even realize what we are actually doing. I always think about when you drive to a destination, whether it's work or to the mountains, whatever it may be, and you look back and you go, I don't remember that drive at all. We have that ability, right? We have the ability to do anything, to walk, tie our shoes, cook dinner, without actually paying attention. And although this can be a good thing, we also know that it's just as important to be mindful during certain parts of our day as well. So that brings up mindfulness, right? What is this? There's a lot of definitions, and here are some of the kind of simple definitions that there are. But the goal really is not to stop thinking, but rather it's really to have us kind of disentangle ourselves from our thoughts by really practicing being aware of the moment-to-moment experiences that we're having in life. So it's really learning, how do we turn towards and accept those moments so that we can really condition our brains in different ways. Over time, what tends to happen is that we have more of a positive outlook on the events that we're having, and we loosen some of those resistance that we have to negative things that we experience. We know that when we are more mindful, we're better at observing whatever is going on in that moment, but we also are able to really be in tune to our feelings, our impulses, our thoughts, not only about what's going on around us, but also with ourselves as well. We also know that we can improve our ability to respond really wisely and intentionally instead of just reacting to things that are happening. which makes us make better decisions, and overall tends to have us lead a healthier life. So in general, we know there's a lot of benefits to this, and why people really integrate this practice into their daily lives. So when we look at it, what does it actually mean? What does it mean to be mindful? These are just a few things that kind of pop out when we talk about it. So part of it is paying attention, right? We have to be mindful. You have to pay attention, whatever you choose to attend to, but you have to be paying attention to it. It's also part of being in the present moment. The reality of being in the here and now means that you're just aware that the things that you're experiencing are the way are as they are as you are experiencing them right now. Sorry, that was a lot of jumbling. Really what it's looking at is that your experience is valid and it's correct just as it is in that present moment. We also know that it's non-reactive. So normally when you really experience something, you automatically react, right? Based on previous experiences or past conditioning. So, things that have happened to you, usually when that happens to you later in life, you kind of have this reaction because of what's happened before. What mindfulness really encourages us to do is more so respond to the experience rather to react. So a reaction is very automatic and doesn't give us a lot of choice, where with a response, that's more deliberate and has more of a considered action behind it. Non-judgmental, this is way easier said than actually done, but our temptation is always to judge things, right? We experience things as good or bad, or I like or I don't like this. I want to feel, happy or joyful. I don't want to feel afraid. So letting go of judgments really help us see things as they are rather than through this filter of our personal experiences. And again, based on past experiences. Open-heartedly. So this is pretty simple, but again, not always the easiest, is just to come to your experience with an open heart, with kindness, compassion, friendliness, whatever it may be to whatever you're experiencing. So those are pieces and elements of what mindfulness actually is. What it is not. A few things just to kind of note here. We know that mindfulness is not a technique or just about learning stress management. It is something that we all have the capacity to practice. It doesn't always have to look the same for each of us, but it's not just this one technique thing. It's not about being calm or a particular way in any instance. It's true that obviously it can create a sense of peace or make us feel calm or relaxed while practicing it, but it's not necessarily a guaranteed outcome. It's really just about noticing whatever experience we're having, including the thoughts, feelings, physical sensations that are part of it. It's also not about having just no thought at all. That's not really possible. Instead of aiming for this empty blank mind where no thoughts are present at all, it's really more so that we learn the skill of becoming aware of our thoughts without necessarily doing anything with them. So by noticing the thoughts that we have, we learn how to untangle or unhook ourselves from the identification we have with them. So this is different from just pushing them away. It's more how we relate to them, not the absence of them. It's also not about being complacent. So it doesn't mean that you're automatically agreeable to everything or have complacency with everything. It just means that we acknowledge whatever's going on, which is probably good because it's already happening. And we do take action to change situations when appropriate for obviously the well-being of ourselves and for others. But we do it with an understanding versus reaction or frustration. It's not necessarily religious. We know that mindfulness is practiced by all different kinds of people, regardless of spiritual or religious backgrounds. It's more, again, about utilizing awareness and compassion than really being tied to a set religion. It's not a silver bullet. So I think, again, when we're under stress or we have a lot going on, we look for those techniques that we talked about to help us better cope. Doing this once or even twice is not going to solve everything. It does take time and it does take practice and it does take trial and error to figure out what works for you. And it does work. We know that, we have to approach this in the right mindset with the right attitude, but there's a lot of research behind mindfulness and the benefits of it. But we do have to look at it as kind of from a long-term view. So we're going to watch a short clip kind of talking a little bit about how mindfulness actually impacts our brain a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and play this video.
The human brain is a profoundly complex organ. 90% of its activity occurs beneath conscious awareness, which means that even though we assume that we have some control of how we think, feel, and behave, modern science suggests it's not so simple. The concept of neuroplasticity is a new and exciting area of science. It highlights that our brain is constantly being reshaped throughout our lives by both our experiences and our thoughts. We now know that it is the focus of our awareness that determines which brain networks are strengthened and which are weakened or lost. That means that when we get caught up in cycles of worry or irritability, these are the networks within the brain that become stronger. So the more we worry, the better we become at worrying. However, on the other side of this, if we practice being calm, clear, and focused, we can strengthen these networks too. As humans, our brain differs from other animals. This is mostly due to the front areas of the brain called the frontal lobes, often called the new brain, as it was the last to develop in our evolution. When well developed, this part of our brain helps us to manage our strong emotions and respond with flexibility, even when we feel overwhelmed. It also helps us to tune into the feelings of others with empathy and insight. When we feel worried, distracted, or stuck on achieving goals, our brain function is more strongly dominated by our old brain, which has a part called the amygdala. The amygdala manages the powerful fight and flight response, which switches on when we feel stressed or anxious and releases hormones and chemicals such as cortisol and adrenaline. That is why stress has such a big impact on us. Mindfulness is a technique that can help us to manage this process more effectively by building our skills of attention, concentration, and a capacity to direct our awareness in a certain way. This all means that we're less likely to be swept up by a strong emotion and the power of the amygdala. It also means we can bring choice to our emotions and our thoughts. In doing so, we're playing an active role in changing the way the structure of our brain develops, in much the same way we can change the shape of our body by doing certain exercises at the gym. When we practice meditation regularly, we build a capacity to become aware of thinking and emotion. As our mind becomes more settled, our nervous system is able to take in more accurate information, and we can access capacities for creativity, flexibility, and lateral thinking, which enable us to manage challenging situations more skillfully. When we build skills of mindfulness, we still experience negative feelings like frustration, disappointment, fear, or irritability. But the research shows that we recover much more quickly. We now know from research into brain development that regular meditation and mindfulness practice reduces the size of the amygdala, reduces levels of stress hormones, and strengthens connections to the frontal lobes. This all means that we're more likely to live with less stress and more happiness.
All right. So again, just kind of shows the impact this actually has on our brain in a positive way, and really the function behind it. Oops. Here we go. So I'm not going to go into great detail on this, as I think we all know there is proven research out there behind mindfulness, but here's kind of a list of what that research really shows, and that it really truly can help in a lot of different areas of our lives. So just to highlight a few different pieces here, within our bodies, studies have shown that just 8 weeks of practicing mindfulness can boost the immune system's ability to fight off illnesses or be able to react better to when we have exposure to that. A lot of studies have also found that mindfulness increases positive emotions while reducing negative emotions and stress, which I think is really where a lot of us kind of grasp onto this a little bit more. Research has also found that it increases density of gray matter in the brain, which is linked to learning and memory, emotional regulation, and empathy as well. Excuse me. Also helps us, mindfulness has shown that it helps us tune out distractions and really improves our memory and attention skills as well. So again, you can see all these things that it really can reduce and all these things that it has proven to help as well. So what type of person really benefits from this? We know that each individual can benefit from this in a unique way that's helpful for them and their lifestyle. But a few things that of how it's been integrated and helped in these areas, I think can be pretty interesting as well. When people in relationships have practiced this together, there has been outcomes that show that people note that they're more satisfied in their relationship, they feel more optimistic and relaxed, and actually have more acceptance of each other as well. When this is integrated within parenting, we see that it can reduce anxiety and stress and depression. We also see, which I think is kind of interesting, that parents who practice this report that they're actually happier in their parenting skills. And it's also showing that their kids were found to have better social skills as well, just due to their parents being able to practice this. So, a lot of that modeling that they probably see. Schools are starting to integrate this a lot more, but they see that it reduces behavioral problems and aggression, improves happiness levels, and really helps with the ability for kids to pay attention. With teachers, it shows that it's actually lowered blood pressure, and they have less, negative emotions and depression, and tend to have noted having greater compassion and empathy. Within the healthcare, they've seen that professionals cope with stress a little bit better, that they're able to connect with their patients more, and again, helps with those emotional regulations as well. In prisons, they found that it can help reduce anger and hostility, mood disturbances as well, and really can help with the rehabilitation and reintegration process. And then with veterans, they've also noted that it can help with symptoms of PTSD. So obviously a very large range of different groups of people, but all seeing kind of the benefits behind it. So I think we've kind of proven the point here of what the benefits are with mindfulness. So now we're going to dive into, what does this look like for you? So we are going to take a quick quiz to see how mindful all of you are. So the next screen I'm going to show up is just a quick self-assessment, not quiz, self-assessment for you to take, just to note how mindful you really are right now. Don't think about maybe how you were several months ago or what you hope to be, but more where you are in the moment. You are going to circle a number 1 through 4 for each category, and then you're going to make a total at the end. So total, not the columns up, but just the total number that you have. When you have finished, I'd like to hear in the chat kind of what your score was. We are going to get a range, and that is totally fine. We're not here to judge, but just to like to hear kind of where people sit and where they are in their mindfulness. So I'll give you a moment to do this. And again, in the chat, I'd like to hear what your summary score is. All right, so we're getting some scores here. We got a very wide range, which is totally normal. Kind of a range from those 20s up to the 40s, 50s even. Wow. So the thing behind this that I'm hoping you are not all doing is judging yourself, which I'm sure that's always kind of our instinct to do. But more of this is just to give ourselves awareness. So looking at these that we just kind of went through, and again, we see a very wide range of what scores are coming in, but anything that anybody wants to note of what they're kind of noticing they're doing well. And again, your score could be lower or higher, but what's kind of come easier for you? That's kind of been like, yeah, that's something I just kind of naturally do, or is kind of integrated in my day. Anybody want to note what that is, or what they feel kind of confident in what they're doing? So as mentioned, humor when things go wrong. Great. Anything else? And this is something also that can fluctuate also depending on what we're going through or what's happening in our lives. As mentioned, giving myself grace, usually pretty understanding with mistakes, trying to pause before reaction. That's great as well. So a lot of different kind of things coming up for people of again, things that may come easier for some and may be more difficult for others. Anything want to note when they look at this, what seems really difficult or really hard? Anything specific come up for anybody? It's also mentioned, give myself grace, 3 slow, deep breaths to allow time, feeling emotions, understanding them, and then reacting. Be kind to myself. I don't know if that one, sorry, I kind of mixed these. I don't know if that one was harder or easier for Amanda, but I know I kind of asked both at the same time, but let's kind of focus in now on what's a little bit harder. It's hard to not get lost in my feelings. Inner peace has become easier. I think that's true, Margaret. A lot of times we can easily get caught up in what we're feeling and kind of make that kind of harder to get out of that. External environment can affect my peace, things that I can't change. That's a great example. It's very hard for us to let go of things that we can't control, and can definitely throw off how we're feeling. Hard to be patient when I'm too busy. That's great as well. So yes, giving myself grace, knowing I have been the best I could be on that day. So I think this is a tool that we can come back to, recognizing, where things may become easier, where things are harder for me, and then really learning how can I maybe focus in a little bit more, try to give myself grace, or, learn to tune into my feelings, or be more patient with myself, and not necessarily focus on all the things at once, but maybe one thing at a time, and really trying to practice that or tune into that a little bit more. So again, not a judgment piece, but more so for us to learn what we're doing well, continue those things, and then see where we can improve and try to practice that or hone into some of those on certain days, or during a week, and see what changes and how it impacts us. So now that we see kind of where we sit with this, now what we're going to do is learn how to actually integrate this. What do we actually do about this? So I think this is the best way to describe mindfulness. It's not easy, but it is pretty simple. The idea kind of at its core is to stop our mind from wandering. Is not to stop our mind from wandering. The point is to be mindful of its wandering and to shift where you want to be. So we're going to learn kind of 2 ways that we can do this. So formally, so how we kind of put an intentional commitment towards our mindfulness exercise, and then informally. And this is just kind of bringing that to what we are already doing in our everyday lives. And we can do both, we can do one or the other, but learning different ways to practice it. But regardless of how we do this, there's really 4 steps to it. You focus on one thing, your mind wanders off, you notice it wandered, you shift your attention back on that one thing, and we repeat it. So that's kind of our basis of this when we kind of focus in on this. So we're going to first talk about formal, and then we'll kind of dive into informal, and we'll practice both today just to kind of get a glimpse into what works for each of you. So this quick little video is going to describe a little bit more of formal mindfulness and what we really mean behind that.
Despite what you may have heard, meditation does not involve joining a group, paying any fees, wearing any special outfits, sitting in a funny position, or believing in anything in particular. It is simple, secular, scientifically validated exercise for your brain. You don't have to do it yet, but just so you know, here are the 3 steps. 1, sit with your back straight and your eyes closed. 2, notice the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. Pick a spot where it's most prominent. Usually that's your nose or your chest or your belly, and just focus your full attention on the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. Now, as soon as you try to do this, your mind's going to go nuts. You're going to start thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch? Why'd I say that dumb thing to my boss? Your brain's going to go nuts, and that's fine. The whole game is to notice when you've gotten lost and to start over, and then to start over again, and again, and again. Every time you do that, it's like a bicep curl for your brain, and it shows up on the brain scans. Scientists have found this in the lab. It's also, by the way, a radical act. You're breaking a lifetime's habit of walking around in a fog of projection and rumination, and you're actually focusing on what's happening right now. Meditation is unlike anything you do in the rest of your life. Failure is actually success. As I said, the whole game is just trying, failing, starting again, failing, starting again. Here's my advice. You should be meditating every day, 5 to 10 minutes a day. That's it. This doesn't require some giant investment. I don't care how busy you are. You have 5 to 10 minutes to give this a shot. I guarantee you it will make a big difference.
All right. So again, pretty simple in what he describes there, but not always the easiest thing for us to do, right? So here are some examples of how we can really integrate that formal mindfulness into our lives. Oops. And then we're going to practice one as well. So as I mentioned, it includes an intentional commitment of time. This can be anything from a minute to an hour. Obviously, we don't want to start with an hour, but it can be a range of how much time we're putting towards this. But again, it really has us tune in and be aware of one thing and really focus in on this. As I also mentioned, it obviously changes the way our brains function and really can help over time really change how we react to things or respond to things. So sitting meditation, rumination, such a tough habit to break, absolutely. So looking at this sitting meditation is kind of what we tend to think of and kind of what they showed there, right? With sitting upright, kind of shoulders back, heart open, and just being for several minutes. Practice noticing your thoughts, emotions, sensation in a non-judgmental, compassionate way. So that's kind of the focus a lot of what we think of when we think of meditation. To kind of hone in a little bit more, we can do this with our breath. I think this is one of the most simple ways to do this and easiest to start with, where we focus solely on our breath, thinking about how it enters and exits our body, bringing attention. A lot of people think of receiving and releasing for it, but you're really focusing in on your breath as you are breathing and focusing in on that for several minutes or even a few minutes. We can do this with walking. So experiencing your feet, making contact with the earth, and with each step, noticing the sensations on your body. So kind of same with your breath, but you're doing it with the contact of your feet on the earth. They do this a lot with eating meditation. So you're focusing very mindfully. They do it a lot with like raisins just because of the texture and taste, but you can do it with any piece of food. And you really are fully kind of ingrained into that experience. So the smell, the texture, the taste, all the sensations that food brings as you are eating it. So it really can slow us down. Thinking of pleasant and unpleasant noticing with interest and openness and also curiosity, the sensations around you, what you experience as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You're not judging them, you're just acknowledging them and becoming aware of that. You can do this with a sensory guided meditation. So we're going to do this one here in a little, well, it's a body scan, but similar to this, where you're just very intentional on what you're hearing, touching, smelling, or tasting. So kind of bringing them all together. A body scan is what we're going to actually practice. And that's where you slowly and intentionally scan your body from the top of your head to your toes, really to become more in tune to what we're feeling, kind of what resistance we have, and kind of feel what's going on. And this is not to really resist anything, but more practice what we're comfortable with and being comfortable with the uncomfortable as well. And then yoga, I think a lot of people know about yoga, but obviously this is the integration of mind, body, and spirit through the breath, through poses, through flow, through movement and mindfulness, all integrated together, and really can help us integrate mindfulness through that body flow and movement that we're doing. So those are some of the things that you can do in a formal way. I will make sure I have a list that I will make sure to send out. I don't know if I can send it in the chat. Oh, I can. I will put it in the chat right now too. That can help learn or some of these techniques with their descriptions as well. So I will make sure to put these in the chat for you. I'm going to do that now. So it's a Word document that you should hopefully be able to access. If you cannot access it, I'll make sure that you can have access to that and the slides after if you would like. All right, so let's try this. So we're gonna do a quick body scan. This is a 3-minute body scan. I am going to play this for you. It's gonna guide you through it and we'll go from there. Sorry, give it 1 second here. If you can't hear it here in a minute, let me know.
Welcome to this 3-minute guided body scan. Start by sitting comfortably with a straight back and close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths in and out to ground you in this moment, feeling your breath as it enters your body and as it leaves your body. As the breath flows in, follow it in. Then as the breath flows out, follow it through to its completion. With each out-breath, let your body become heavy, sinking deeper into your chair. Now bring your attention to your head, feeling into your scalp, the forehead, and temples. Observe your eyes, cheeks, your ears, jaw, and chin. Breathing in and out, letting all tensions release. Now lower your focus to the neck and shoulders, letting them soften. Bring awareness to your arms, extending it down towards the wrists, the palms, and fingers. Observing any sensations that arise on the surface of the skin or deeper within. Now come to the chest and torso area, being aware of the abdomen, then bringing your awareness around to the back, observing your upper back and lower back. And if you notice any intensity here, try directing the breath into those areas, letting them soften. Then bring your attention to your pelvis and hips, and scanning the legs, the ankles, the feet, and the toes. Direct your breath into these areas, relaxing into stillness. Notice how paying attention to the entire length of your body feels. Then, when you're ready, bring your attention back to the room and slowly open your eyes. Enjoy this relaxed, peaceful state and take it with you into your day.
All right. So would like some feedback from you all. What felt easy or what felt good, I guess, overall about that exercise? Anybody have any comments there? What did you enjoy about it or like? So you mentioned that it was relaxing. Taking the time to just pause and be present, breathing and being aware, turning inward and ignoring my surroundings. Great. Slow breathing calms. Excellent. I always like this just because I notice where I'm like holding tension. I never really know unless I'm doing this that like my jaw is always super tight. And so it's like one of those that you all of a sudden are noticing like, oh, my shoulders are like up high, or, you know, my legs are for some reason super tense. So it kind of makes you really tune into those areas that you're holding tension or holding a lot, and can really focus in on that. Because I think we, again, go through so much of our day of like being unaware of that. So it can be a helpful tune in for that. Anything that you guys found really hard? Did anybody feel like that was like the longest 3 minutes of their life, which is totally normal? But anything feel hard about that? Was it hard to stay present the whole time? Or anything kind of difficult with it? Nobody found any difficulties? Usually a few of us feel like that was really kind of hard for me. One didn't want to stop, which is great. That's a great response to have. Can bring up body issues, need to work out and lose weight. Turning off the brain is always hard. Absolutely. I think, 3 minutes, for some people who've been doing this for a while, it's like, yeah, this is easy. For some that this is kind of new, it's long, and it can be like, gosh, my brain did start to wander. And I, was having a really hard time staying focused, and that's completely normal. That's why I think it is important to start small. And then you can build up. There are people who do this for 30 minutes. You may never get to that point, and that's totally fine. But even a 3-minute exercise can make a difference. So just learning there's, ways that we can do this without sitting and trying to do this on our own. There's tons of ways that we can have this guided that can be helpful as well. So great feedback though, and great to hear that it was helpful for a lot of you. All right, so moving on to the informal piece of this. I think this is a lot of times where we look at like, well, I don't have time to do formal practices. So we can learn to do this in an informal way where we adapt everyday, we can call these kind of everyday mindfulness. So when we practice mindfulness in a more informal way, we're noticing the experience from moment to moment and bringing our attention to that, to things we are already doing in the day. And it can be a lot of different things. And here's just a few examples. So you're walking to your car, you're maybe going on a walk during your lunch break, you notice nature, listen to the sounds of birds, or cars or trees. I think spring is the best time to do this because there's so much popping up that you can notice. So you can notice sounds, sights, smells, all these different things that are going on around you just through a short 10-minute walk. And you're really paying attention just to the nature kind of around you. You can do this just with listening. This is not always the easiest task for us, but when you're having a conversation with somebody, really listen deeply, practice not giving advice, just listen and allow the person to be where they are. Listen with a gentle and open focus. Focus on everything that that person is saying without, being prepared for a response, just really focusing into what they're saying. You will notice a big shift in how people open up and how they talk to you when we have no agenda, when we're really just there for them. Parenting, we can do this in small bits where you pause for anywhere for 5 to 10 minutes and you bring your full attention to your parenting. So you're sitting down and doing Legos, but your whole attention is to playing Legos with your kiddo. And again, you can do this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But as I mentioned earlier, it really shows that this strengthens our parenting skills and obviously impacts our child in a positive way as well. Movement. So you're exercising, you're going upstairs, whatever it is, but you are focusing on all the sensations in your body as you are moving your body in whatever way that looks like. You can do this with self-compassion. Notice when you're being harsh or judgmental with yourself, guide your thoughts more towards positive self-talk or self-compassion. And breath, you can do this formally, but you can also do this informally, where you're pausing through your day, connect with our breath, noticing ourselves inhaling, exhaling, and just kind of taking a moment to do that as well. So a few examples of what that can look like. Here's some examples as well. This is from Headspace, but kind of thinking of how to do this in your everyday life. So taking a shower. This is something that most of us do at some point during the week. But while you're taking a shower, notice the sound of the water as it sprays out of the nozzle, as it hits your body, as it goes down the drain. Notice the temperature of the water, how it feels on your hair, how that feels different than it feels on your shoulders or your legs. Notice the smell of the soap and shampoo, the feel of them on your skin or in your hands or on your hair. Notice the sight of the water droplets on the wall or on the floor. Notice the movements of your arms as you wash your hair, your body. And then obviously when things arise, when your mind wanders, let them be, acknowledge that, but bring your attention back to what you are doing in the shower. So obviously you acknowledge, okay, my brain's going somewhere else, then go back and say, okay, well, let me focus back on what I'm doing here. So you don't have to do this for your whole shower, but for, 5 minutes of your shower, really tune into all the elements of taking a shower. I think an easy one to do this with is brushing our teeth, because that's usually about a 2-minute process and a great starting point, but same thing. Noticing the feel of the toothbrush on your teeth, on your gums, on your tongue, the taste, the smell, the pressure that you're feeling, but you're only focusing on all the elements of brushing your teeth and what that is like. This one's hard to do because usually when we're standing in a line, we get out our phones, and that is always the first thing we do. But maybe challenge yourself and say, let me just stand here. See what your first reaction is. Obviously, usually it's like, oh my gosh, a line. But tune into yourself. Think about your posture. Be mindful of your breath. Feel the physical sensations you're having in your legs or in your back. You can easily do breathing exercises while standing in a line as well. Some of us are commuting back to work or spending more time in the car now, but really paying attention with focus with what you are seeing, the feeling of the steering wheel in your hands, the noises around you, the engine, the music, the cars outside, trying to relax our shoulders, notice what we're feeling, and really being mindful of all elements of our driving. We can also do this with washing dishes, right? So this is a shorter task as well. Notice the water, the feel of the sensation of the warmth, the bubbles, all of that on your hands as you're washing. Slow your movement down, pause your movements, notice the smell, notice all the things that go into washing the dishes. So again, these are everyday things that really can be helpful to bring our attention to what we are doing in the moment. It says that this all seems to avoid multitasking, which I'll talk to you here in a little bit. Multitasking actually has been proven to be ineffective. So yes, it kind of helps us be in the moment and do things as they are and be present to what we are doing as well. So we're gonna try this for a second. Oops, if I can get there, here we go. We're gonna do a listening mindfulness exercise. So much of what we feel is influenced by past experiences. So you may dislike a song because it reminds you of a breakup or a bad period in your life that feels negative. So we kind of judge things based on past experiences, which is totally normal. So the idea of this exercise is really to listen to some music from as neutral of a standpoint and be present with your awareness as it is right now. So one thing I want you to try to do is try not to get drawn into judgment of the music, its genre. As it first comes in, that's usually where it goes. So allow yourself to explore every aspect of the track. Even if it's not music that you like at first, try to let go of your dislike and just give your full awareness to the song. So explore the song by listening to the dynamic of every instrument you hear, separate sounds in your mind and analyze each one. Hone in on the vocals, the sound of the voices, the range, the differences that you hear. So you're really taking and piecing apart this as we listen to it. The idea is really to listen intently and to become totally entwined into the song without judgment. So we're really trying not to think, we're really just trying to listen here. So I'm going to do this for 2 minutes and then we'll go from there. Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right, so that was a short clip into that, but just a quick exercise just to take a couple minutes to really listen intently to a song without as much judgment as possible. Anybody find that easy, difficult? Any thoughts behind that one? Enjoyed that one. Easy, felt like I was floating, like the song. The song was Groundation Chant by Groundation, which is pretty easy to remember. Want to take a nap now. Yeah, sometimes that's what this does to us. But again, it can kind of, that song's a good example. There's a lot of different instruments going on and they kind of are slowly introduced, but to hear them as they started and really focusing in on them. Next time I'll use Shazam to look them up. Yes. So a good tool to kind of practice. And again, we can do this with music. We can do it with people. We can do it with lectures we're listening to, whatever it may be. But a good practice to really tune in and really fully listen and be mindful while doing it. We're not going to do this one right now, but this is another example of appreciation. I think this can be a helpful tool. Just to think more about what we're appreciative of. So notice 5 things in your day that usually go unappreciated. They can be objects, they can be people. The point of this exercise is to simply give thanks and appreciation to the seemingly insignificant things in your life. The things that really support our existence or what we're here, but rarely get a second thought. So, thinks about like electricity or the postman or clothes or your nose or your ears, whatever it may be, just random kind of things that we never really give a second thought to. You can ask these kind of curious questions of how do these things work or how do these things exist? Have you ever acknowledged these things? Have you ever thought what your life would be like without them? So again, a simple exercise, but can really have us tune in to things that we maybe don't think of and appreciate them a little bit more. All right, thinking about this in the workplace, here's just a few things that we can do as well. So unfortunately, almost 70% of us come to work disengaged, which I don't think is terribly surprising, but obviously not a great statistic there. So here's a few things we can do to help. Be present. So make a clear decision at the start of your workday to be as present the best that you can. So maybe pause for a few minutes before you start your workday to give give yourself an intention of where you're going to go or what you're going to do for that day. Also, try to give full attention to what you would think is like mundane tasks. So opening a door, dialing a phone, even though we don't really dial phones anymore, but whatever it may be, your breath as you're waiting in a meeting, those little moments of like mundane tasks that you're doing, maybe going through an Excel spreadsheet, those little things that we kind of give our full attention to can add up over the day. Talking about multitasking. So what we have found is nobody can actually multitask. What really happens is your brain is just madly switching from one thing to the next. And often what happens is we lose data in that process. So nowadays, multitasking is actually proven to be kind of ineffective. So to help with this, we can keep a time journal of what you achieve in a block of time. So work out when you're multitasking versus when you're single tasking. Note down what you achieved in those time blocks and see how mindful you actually were. You can group tasks in categories at times. Sometimes this isn't easy to do, but put together emails and then phone calls and errands and meetings and try to block them together instead of madly switching from one thing to the next. Obviously, we know switching off distractions can be helpful. So silence phone, log off from email, whatever it may be, set a timer to try to get as much done as you can and record how much you actually get done in that time. Seeing what that, actual focus without distractions can really do. We can do short mindfulness exercises. So that body scan is a great example of what we can do, or that music piece as well. This can be very easy to integrate within our day. Set reminders. Watches do this now. Obviously, calendars can do this, but put that in your phones. Make stress your friend. So really know that stress is a motivator. It can be really helpful. When we only have this negative outlook on stress, it really is unhealthy for us. So challenge yourself to, when you're feeling stressed and you're noticing it in your body and your thoughts, try to take a moment to, instead of just react, respond and take a moment to take some deep breaths to think how you move forward. If you feel like you're stuck, if you're not happy with where you're at, if you're having a bad day, week, whatever, try to focus on some of the things you're grateful for. What's going well in my job? What am I grateful for? What do I find enjoyment in, instead of just focusing on that negativity? And then try to accept things that you can't change. We're going to make mistakes. Things are not going to go well. The sooner we accept that and move forward, the more we're able to make progress in the future as well. Lack of acceptance can really lead to denial, and can really create more issues. So learn from the situations and move on. And that's what can really lead to change. So those are a few tips we can do to help within the workplace. Here are some helpful apps. Another one that a lot of people know is Insight Timer is what a lot of people have been using. In the chat, if there's any apps that you use, please write those down. I would love to hear more of what has worked for you all. But here are just a few. And then just as a takeaway here, you know, I'm not going to give you guys homework, but if you are not practicing this at all, try to really find some time to find something that works for you. If you don't want to go the formal way, find, you know, anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes a day to practice informal. Choose 1 to 2 short activities that you do every day to try to do that as well. So practicing this is really what's going to make it part of your daily life, and really over time, that is where you will see the benefits. I know we only have a couple minutes left, so I do want to leave some time for questions. I can always stick on for a little bit longer. I will also put my email in the chat, so if anything comes up, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Alex. Does anyone have any questions before we go? Okay, well, feel free to reach out to Alex if you think of anything, and otherwise we will set you free. And we will email you all the information for the next workshop as well. Perfect, thank you.
Thanks.